So this is interesting. A few days ago, Israel, along with Egypt, signed an agreement to provide energy for the EU in an effort to, make up for some of the energy dependence that the EU currently has on Russia. As you know, everybody in the world hates Russia right now because their attack on Ukraine, and so that's another whole thing. But the idea that Russia would have a kind of a stranglehold, a lock on the EU in regard to providing so much of its energy is something that the EU wants to move away from, and so hence this agreement with Israel. And this will make Israel a key player in the energy field in the world. And so that's kind of a big development just from a purely economic and influential standpoint. And by and large, that is about the level at which most of the world will pay attention to this until Russia responds. This is an important thing for us to keep watch on. This is some of the stuff you want to keep an eye on. Russia will probably respond in some way, retaliate in some way, once the quote-unquote faucet gets turned on, and it begins to feel the pinch of Israel's energy. Gas essentially is going to be in a certain form sent through Egypt. Egypt is going to liquefy, then it's going to make its way to the EU. But once Russia begins to feel the pinch of that, if not sooner, there will likely be some kind of response or retaliation to that. Probably, presumably, you would assume that there would be something, because between sanctions and now this economic hit, that probably is going to, have the effect of a cat being attacked on its back with its claws out and that kind of thing. You assume something's going to come of this. Now, this is where I want to just spend a minute. This is going to be an actual prophecy brief. But when we approach the subject of prophecy, we always want to, as I almost invariably say, we want to approach it with a measure of humility, because things change fast. Right now, this is a big story. This is a very big deal, but we don't know what Russia's response is going to be yet. It could be immediate and felt broadly, or nothing may happen. It's possible. I don't think that's going to be the case. But we want to, when we see this happening, naturally our tendency, having said all that, naturally our tendency is to remember in the early verses of chapter 38 in Ezekiel, where there is mention of God putting hooks in the jaws of Magog, and pulling her and her hordes with her, the nations that are mentioned around her, with her, I should say, around Israel, to come to attack Israel and try and take the spoils from Israel and that kind of thing. And so read the passage, and naturally your thoughts and mine will veer toward what's going on today and wonder if this is going to create the hook in the jaws. So again, this is a brief prophecy brief. We're talking about this just in regard to keeping our eyes open and watching the news. Believers, all believers, should be paying attention to what's going on in the world around us, and especially if you are also seeking to become and grow as an astute Bible student. You want to pay attention to what's going on and see if, in fact, what is going on lines up with what Scripture describes. And I'll simply end with this thought. We don't know what the hook in the jaws is going to be, but something will be the hook in the jaws. And so that's why I bring up this story and mention the importance of watching what's going on with it as it develops and unfolds. This is a big deal, globally speaking, in terms of economics, and also in terms of geopolitics. Israel is stepping in now, and Israel and Russia have had a relatively tenuous relationship. It's been peaceful, but it's never been one that you really got the sense there was a lot of trust between the leaders of these two nations. So when something like this happens, it's likely going to have an impact, an effect on the relationship between these two nations. And of course, that's important to us as we consider what Scripture has to say about the events that unfold in Ezekiel 38. So again, just a brief moment here just to draw your attention to a news story that, in case you were not aware of it, this is something that I do think will be an important story to watch. And so just simply Google search Israel EU energy deal or something like that, and you'll find a growing number of stories about this. And so let me just encourage you to do that. And until next time, may the Lord bless you and keep you, make his face shine upon you, be gracious to you and give you peace forever. And keep your hands on the plow and your eyes looking up, because Jesus is coming for us soon.